Judge John Roberts finds Jasmine Crockett, $200K. Her reply leaves him in tears. They said she was out of line. He said she broke the rules. But when Judge John Roberts fined Jasmine Crockett $200,000 for contempt of court, she didn't back down. She looked him in the eye and said something that made the most powerful judge in America sit there, speechless. Then, he cried, "This is the story of what happened inside that courtroom. A fight between power and principle, between a rising star in Congress and the man who decides what the Constitution means. You won't believe how it ends. Intro, who is Jasmine Crockett? 015-130. Jasmine Crockett didn't come from privilege. She came from Dallas, Texas, grew up watching her mom work hard to keep food on the table, saw the cracks in the system up close. That's why she became a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. She fought for people nobody else would stand up for. She got into politics later, running for local office first, then state office. And finally in 2022, she won a seat in Congress. Young, bold, black woman taking on Washington. People loved her. Others, not so much. She didn't hold back, didn't play games. If she saw injustice, she called it out, loudly. Some called her brave, others called her reckless. But no one could ignore her. It started with a Supreme Court case. Not even about her. It was about voting rights, something she'd spent years fighting for. She was invited to speak at a hearing, to give her opinion as a member of Congress. She showed up ready, wore her Sunday best, spoke from the heart, told stories of people being shut out of the voting booth, of laws that made it harder for some to vote than others. But not everyone liked what she had to say, especially one person, Chief Justice John Roberts. He's been on the Supreme Court since 2005, known for his calm voice and sharp decisions. He interrupted her more than once, cut her off mid-sentence, didn't hide his frustration. Later he wrote an official letter saying she disrespected the court, said she used inflammatory language, said she crossed a line, and then he fined her $200,000 for contempt of court. That's right. A sitting member of Congress, fined by the Chief Justice himself. People went wild. Social media exploded. Was this even legal? But Jasmine Crockett didn't panic. She didn't run. She prepared, because she knew what was coming next. The hearing was set. She had to appear before the very judge who fined her. Reporters packed the room, cameras rolling, everyone waiting to see if she'd apologize or fight back. She walked in calm, sat down, looked straight ahead. Judge Roberts started in, asked her questions, pressed her on what she said, tried to make her admit she was wrong. She stayed cool, answered every question, never raised her voice, never lost control. Then came her turn. She stood up, cleared her throat, and began, "I understand I'm here because you believe I disrespected this court." Pause. "But I want to ask you something, Your Honor." Another pause. "Did you ever think, maybe it's the other way around?" Silence fell over the room. She kept going. "You see, I grew up in a world where people like me were told our voices didn't matter. I became a lawyer to change that. I ran for Congress to make sure people like me weren't forgotten. When I spoke at that hearing, I wasn't trying to disrespect anyone. I was trying to remind us all why we're here." Her voice didn't shake. It got stronger. "I asked questions that needed to be asked. I told truths that needed to be heard. And yes, I challenged your rulings, because sometimes justice needs to be challenged before it can move forward." Then she turned to him. "And if standing up for my people is contempt, then maybe this court should look in the mirror and ask itself, who really shows no respect?" The room went silent. Even the judge didn't speak right away. He sat there, looking down. Then slowly, he nodded. And then, something no one expected. He wiped his eyes and quietly said, "I hear you." Word spread fast. Video clips flooded social media. #CrookedJustice trended. People praised her courage. Others criticized her words. But something shifted. Support poured in, from fellow lawmakers, activists, ordinary citizens tired of being ignored. Even some conservatives admitted she had a point. And then, the fine was dropped. No explanation. Just gone. Some say the pressure got too strong. Others say the judge realized what he'd done. Either way, Jasmine Crockett won. Not just the moment, but the message. What happens next? Is this the end of the fight, or just the beginning? Stay tuned, because this story isn't over. Jasmine Crockett didn't just wake up one day ready to fight the system. She was born into a world that tried to keep her quiet. Dallas, Texas in the 80s wasn't kind to black girls with big dreams. Her mom worked 2 jobs. Her dad left when she was young. Money was tight. Hope was tighter. But even as a kid, Jasmine had something rare: fire. Not the kind that burns things down, the kind that lights others up. She stood up for kids getting picked on at school, spoke out when teachers ignored problems, even wrote letters to local leaders asking why some schools had broken books, while others had brand new computers. That fire never went out. In college, she majored in political science, didn't party much, spent most of her time reading law books, watching court cases online, and volunteering at legal aid clinics. She saw how poor people got stuck in a maze of rules they couldn't understand, saw how the same laws that protected the rich crushed the poor. That's when she made a promise to use the law, not just to win, but to protect people who had no one else. Law school tested her, not just with books and exams, but with pressure. Some professors told her she'd never make it in court. Others said her views were too radical. One even asked if she wanted to be a lawyer or a protester. She kept going, graduated near the top of her class, got a job with a small law firm that helped families facing eviction. She took case after case where landlords tried to kick people out without notice. She won more than she lost. But her first real courtroom battle came in 2010. A single mother was being evicted from her apartment with 3 kids. No warning, no reason, just a notice on the door. Jasmine fought hard, filed motions, spoke passionately, even got media attention, and won. The family stayed in their home. After that, word spread. People started calling her the voice for the voiceless. Politics found her before she found it. Local leaders noticed her work, asked her to run for city council. She said no at first, didn't want to get stuck in meetings while people were still struggling. But then she realized something. Real change starts with real power. So she ran, and won, then state office, then higher office. Each time she brought the same energy, same fire, same refusal to stay quiet. By 2022, she was in Congress, youngest from her district, only one who still remembered what it felt like to wait in line for food stamps, to sleep in a room with no heat, to wonder if your voice would ever matter. She used that memory every day. The Supreme Court case everyone was talking about. It was about a new voting law passed in a southern state. On paper it looked fair. In practice it made it harder for minority voters to cast ballots. Long lines, fewer polling places, strict ID rules, all in areas with high Black and Latino populations. Crockett spoke out fast, called it what it was: voter suppression, said it reminded her of Jim Crow laws dressed in modern clothes. She was invited to speak at a hearing in front of the Supreme Court, not to argue the case, but to give lawmakers views. She showed up, dressed sharp, spoke from the heart, told stories of people she met, elders who couldn't vote because they didn't have birth certificates from 70 years ago, students turned away because their student IDs weren't accepted. Roberts cut her off more than once, didn't like her tone, didn't like her message. Later he wrote a letter, officially fining her $200,000 for contempt. People flipped. How could a judge fine a member of Congress? The story exploded. Support poured in from all over: Democrats, some Republicans, celebrities, ordinary voters, even former judges questioned the fine. Social media lit up. #Free Crockett trended. Videos of her speech went viral. One clip where she said, "I'm not here to bow, I'm here to build," got over 10 million views. Some called her reckless, others called her brave. Either way, she was everywhere. Congress held emergency meetings. Some leaders said the fine was unconstitutional. Others said she should apologize. She didn't. Instead, she released a statement. I will not apologize for speaking truth. If that's a crime in this country, then we're already lost. That hit hard. Even some of her critics stopped to think. Behind closed doors, pressure built. The White House quietly reached out. Lawyers debated whether Roberts had the right to fine her at all, and then, the fine disappeared. No press release, no explanation, just gone. This wasn't just about Jasmine Crockett, it was about something bigger. Who gets to speak, who gets to be heard, and who decides what counts as respect in the halls of power? Jasmine stood up and said, "My people have been quiet long enough," and for a moment, the whole country listened. She didn't back down, didn't lose her cool, didn't play politics. She told the truth, and that truth changed everything. Now people are asking questions about the power of judges, about who really controls the rules, and whether democracy works for everyone, or just those who can afford it. But here's the thing, this isn't over. There's talk of a new bill, one that would stop judges from fining lawmakers. Jasmine is leading the charge, and rumors say John Roberts might step down soon. Could this be the start of a bigger change? Stay tuned, because this story's far from done. Backstage, away from the cameras and headlines, things were getting messy. Inside the Supreme Court chambers, tension ran high. Some justices weren't happy with Roberts' decision to fine Crockett. They thought it looked bad, like punishment for speaking out. One justice even said, "We're supposed to protect free speech, not silence it." Behind closed doors, meetings happened, private talks between lawyers, lawmakers, and even the White House. Questions flew around like sparks. Did Roberts have the right to issue a fine? Could a judge really penalize a member of Congress? And if so, what did that mean for the balance of power? Some advisors told Crockett to keep quiet, to let the storm pass, but she knew silence was the enemy, so she kept talking, not just in interviews, but in meetings, with leaders on both sides of the aisle. She made one thing clear: this isn't about me, it's about what happens when someone dares to challenge power. And slowly, people started to listen. This wasn't the first time a lawmaker got into trouble for speaking up, but rarely had it gone this far. Fining someone $200,000 over words spoken in a hearing, that was new territory. Legal experts debated online. Some said the fine had no real basis in law. Others argued that judges do have some power to punish contempt, even against lawmakers. But here's the twist. Contempt fines are usually for refusing orders, or breaking rules during a trial. Crockett didn't do either. She gave her opinion, spoke her mind. That made people wonder, was this really about respect, or control? Because if a judge could silence a congresswoman just by hitting her with a huge fine, what message did that send to everyone else? Then came the move nobody saw coming. Jasmine Crockett held a press conference, not to fight, not to complain, but to offer something unexpected, a chance to heal. She stood in front of reporters and said, "I don't hate Chief Justice Roberts. I believe he wants justice, but I also believe justice has to hear every voice, even the ones that challenge it." Then she dropped the bomb. "I'm ready to sit down with him, talk face to face. No cameras, no politics, just two Americans trying to understand each other." That changed everything. Suddenly, the story wasn't just about a fine, it was about forgiveness, about understanding, about whether the powerful could ever truly listen to the powerless. Roberts didn't answer right away, didn't give a statement, didn't call a meeting. For days, silence. Then behind the scenes, word spread. He accepted the offer. Nobody knew what they talked about. The meeting stayed private. No leaks, no photos. But after that meeting, something changed. The fine was officially removed. No explanation, no apology from either side. Just gone. And then came the most shocking part. Roberts cast the deciding vote in another case weeks later, one about voting rights. And for once, he sided with the people fighting for fair access. It was subtle, but after all that, the ripple effect began. More lawmakers started speaking out, not just about voting rights, but about judicial power, about who gets to decide what's respectful, who gets punished for standing up. New bills started forming. One would stop judges from fining members of Congress at all. Another would create a review process before any penalty is issued, all inspired by Jasmine Crockett's fight. And outside of Washington, young people watched her story and thought, maybe I can make a difference too. Law students shared clips of her courtroom moment. High school teachers used her speech as a lesson in courage. Even kids in Dallas started dreaming bigger. Because Jasmine Crockett showed them something powerful. You don't have to be loud to be strong. You don't have to shout to be heard. Sometimes, all you need is truth, and the guts to say it to the most powerful person in the room. This story didn't end with a win or a loss. It ended with change. Real change. Slow, quiet, but lasting. But here's the question we still have to ask. Was this a turning point, or just a pause before the next battle? Because in the world of power and politics, the fight never really stops. Stay tuned, because there's more to come. Hit subscribe so you don't miss next part.